8:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A private K 41 nautical miles off the southern coast of Florida. The water is black glass. 2 Coast Guard Defiant-class interceptors cut their engines 600 yards offshore and drift in on momentum alone. Behind them, a third vessel, unmarked Matt Gray, disgorges 16 members of the FBI's hostage rescue team into rigid, inflatable boats. Night vision down, suppressors threaded. Radio silence absolute. On the dock, a single security guard checks his phone. He will not finish the message he is typing. This is the opening sequence of Operation Tidewater Reckoning, a joint FBI and Homeland Security investigations action 18 months in the making. By sunrise, federal agents will have seized 12 tons of narcotics, $4.7 billion in untraceable currency, and a server farm containing the encrypted communications of what prosecutors will later describe as the most sophisticated criminal logistics network ever operated on United States soil. And at the center of it all, hauled from a reinforced concrete bunker 82 feet below sea level, will be a woman whose face has appeared on the cover of Forbes, Architectural Digest, and the annual gala program for 3 separate children's hospitals. Her name is Lorna Holloway. And until 4:19 a.m. that morning, she was one of the most trusted philanthropists in the American South. This is the story of how she fooled everyone, and how the FBI finally caught her. To understand the magnitude of what federal agents discovered on that island, you have to understand who Lorna Holloway was, or rather, who she had convinced the world she was. 54 years old, twice widowed, the publicly stated heir to a Gulf Coast shipping fortune, founder of the Holloway Maritime Foundation, a charitable organization that had, according to its own public filings, distributed $140 million to coastal conservation efforts and pediatric cancer research over the preceding decade. She sat on the boards of 2 universities. She had been photographed with 3 sitting governors. In 2021, she received a humanitarian award from a federal agency, the same federal apparatus that, by 2024, had assembled a sealed indictment against her running to 217 pages. The foundation was real. The donations were real. The conservation work was real. The shipping fortune was not. According to court documents unsealed last month, the Holloway Maritime Foundation was, from its inception in 2009, a laundering vehicle. Every dollar disbursed to charity was a dollar washed through a network of shell corporations registered in the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, and, most aggressively in the final years, Dubai. Every photograph at every gala served a single purpose: to make Lorna Holloway unsuspectable. She was not unsuspectable. She was, in the words of the lead prosecutor at her arraignment, the chief logistics officer of a transnational criminal enterprise responsible for moving narcotics through 43 American ports of entry. How did no one notice? The answer, federal investigators would discover, was that quite a few people had noticed. They had simply been paid not to say anything. Every major investigation has an origin point. The Holloway case began with a customs agent in Mobile, Alabama, named Daniel Reyes. In March 2023, Reyes flagged a shipping container manifest that listed agricultural ceramics originating from a port in Ecuador. The weight declared was 11,000 kilograms. The actual weight, when the container was lifted by gantry crane, was 14,200 kilograms. A 3,000 kilogram discrepancy. Reyes filed a Level 2 anomaly report. Within 48 hours, his supervisor had reclassified the report as a clerical error and ordered the container released. Reyes did not let it go. He sent the file, quietly, on personal email, to a former Academy classmate now working in the FBI's Miami field office. That classmate was Special Agent Mira Costas. Costas pulled the shipping records. Then she pulled the records for every container that had moved through that particular logistics broker in the preceding 3 years. The pattern was immediate and unmistakable. Containers consistently arriving heavier than declared. Containers consistently cleared by the same 3 customs officials. Containers consistently routed to warehouses owned by limited liability companies whose ownership chains terminated in the same Bahamian law firm. That law firm had a single corporate client of consequence: the Holloway Maritime Foundation. By October 2023, a multi-agency task force had been assembled. The FBI took the lead on financial crimes. Homeland Security investigations handled the trafficking component. The Drug Enforcement Administration was brought in for narcotics analysis. The Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network handled the money trail. For 14 months, they watched. They listened. They mapped. And then, at 3:47 a.m., on a Tuesday morning in February, they moved. The island itself was registered to a Panamanian shell company. 11 acres of mangrove, white sand, and a single residential compound. A 4-bedroom hurricane-rated structure of poured concrete and tempered glass, valued for tax purposes at $6 million. The compound was a decoy. Beneath it, accessed through a hydraulic panel concealed in the master bedroom closet, was a vertical shaft descending 82 feet into the limestone bedrock. The shaft terminated in a facility that federal engineers would later catalog as follows: 2,400 square feet of finished living space, a diesel generator rated for 90 days of autonomous operation, a water filtration system drawing from a private aquifer, an air handling apparatus with NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical, filtration, 3 separate satellite uplinks, a vault constructed of 9-inch reinforced concrete with a Class 5 commercial banking door. Inside the vault, $4.7 billion in United States currency, sorted by denomination, vacuum-sealed in polymer bricks, and stacked on industrial pallets. Adjacent to the vault, in a climate-controlled storage chamber, 12,400 kilograms of narcotics, cocaine, primarily pharmaceutical grade, 94% pure, methamphetamine in crystalline form, approximately 300 kilograms of fentanyl precursor in industrial drums, 12 tons, read that number again, 12 tons of narcotics in a single private facility, beneath a single private island, owned through a single shell corporation, controlled by a single woman who had spent the previous evening attending a fundraiser for a children's literacy program in Palm Beach. She had returned to the island by seaplane at 11:42 p.m. She was asleep when the breach team came through her bedroom door. She did not resist. What followed the arrest was, by the standards of federal narcotics enforcement, unprecedented. The on-site cataloging operation required 6 days. Agents pulled hard drives, ledgers, encrypted communication devices, satellite phones, and 23 bankers' boxes of physical documentation. They photographed everything. They tagged everything. They sent everything to a secure facility in Northern Virginia for analysis. The hard drives told a story that prosecutors are still untangling. The Holloway Network, according to the unsealed indictment, operated across 17 countries. It maintained relationships with 3 major South American producers. It moved product through 43 American ports. It employed, directly or through cutout intermediaries, an estimated 400 individuals, including, prosecutors allege, 11 United States Customs officials, 4 Port Authority administrators, 2 state-level law enforcement officers, and 1 federal employee whose identity remains under seal pending separate prosecution. The money laundering apparatus was, if anything, more sophisticated than the trafficking operation. Funds were moved through a chain of shell corporations, converted into cryptocurrency at 3 separate exchange platforms, layered through Dubai-based real estate transactions, and ultimately reintroduced into the legitimate financial system through the Holloway Maritime Foundation's charitable disbursements. The charitable work, in other words, was not a cover for the crime. It was the final stage of the crime. Every children's hospital wing, every conservation grant, every scholarship, each one a receipt, a paper trail establishing the legitimacy of money that had begun its journey as the product of overdose deaths in cities across the American interior. How do you weigh that arithmetic? The raid on the island was not the only action that morning. At precisely 3:47 a.m., the same instant the breach team entered Lorna Holloway's bedroom, federal agents executed 84 simultaneous search and arrest warrants across 9 states and 3 foreign jurisdictions. In Mobile, Alabama, Customs Supervisor Raymond Echeverria was taken into custody at his home. 3 of his subordinates were arrested at their respective residences within the same hour. In Houston, Texas, a Port Authority logistics director named Adelina Voss was arrested as she arrived at her office. Her safe contained $140,000 in cash and a flash drive that prosecutors describe as operationally devastating to multiple ongoing concerns. In Newark, New Jersey, 2 warehouse operators were arrested alongside their attorney, who had been observed by surveillance teams attempting to shred documents in the moments before agents entered his office. In Miami, the senior partner of the Bahamian law firm that had served as the foundation's primary corporate registrar was arrested at his vacation home in Coral Gables. In Dubai, working through Emirati authorities, agents detained 2 real estate developers and froze approximately $1.1 billion in assets pending extradition proceedings. By noon, the total count stood at 73 arrests, $4.7 billion in physical currency seized, an additional $1.9 billion in financial assets frozen, and 12 tons of narcotics removed from the American supply chain. It is, by any available measure, the largest single-day enforcement action in the history of American federal narcotics enforcement. 3 days after the raid, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida stood at a podium in front of a wall of seized evidence and addressed the nation. "What we have dismantled," she said, "is not a criminal organization in the conventional sense. It is a parallel institution. It maintained its own logistics infrastructure, its own financial system, its own security apparatus, and its own corrupted access to the legitimate institutions of the United States." She paused. For 15 years, Lorna Holloway sat at galas next to public officials. She received humanitarian awards. She shaped public policy on coastal conservation, and during every single one of those evenings, she was the operational head of an enterprise responsible, directly or indirectly, for the deaths of an unknowable number of Americans. She paused again. The room was silent. This case is not closed. "We have arrested 73 individuals. The indictment names 204. Some are fugitives. Some are foreign nationals. Some are individuals whose names will be made public only when prosecutorial considerations permit. To those individuals, wherever you are, I will say this directly. We have your records. We have your communications. We have your ledgers. We are coming." The statement was widely circulated. It was also, according to senior officials, intended as much for internal audiences as external ones. The federal employee implicated in the sealed portion of the indictment is, as of this filing, still employed by the United States government. Lorna Holloway was arraigned on charges including continuing criminal enterprise, conspiracy to import controlled substances, money laundering, conspiracy to commit money laundering, bribery of federal officials, and 17 additional counts. She entered a plea of not guilty. Her trial is scheduled for early next year. The prosecution has indicated it will seek a sentence that would functionally constitute life imprisonment under the federal kingpin statute. Her attorneys have indicated they intend to challenge the legality of the initial customs anomaly report, the surveillance authorizations issued in the 14 months preceding the raid, and the chain of custody on the seized currency. Legal analysts who have reviewed the public portions of the indictment describe the government's case as exceptionally well documented and essentially unanswerable on the merits. She remains in federal custody. She is being held without bond. The Holloway Maritime Foundation has been dissolved by court order. Its assets have been frozen pending forfeiture proceedings. The charitable institutions that received its disbursements over the preceding decade now face a difficult and unresolved question. Do they return the funds? Can they? The pediatric cancer wing bearing Holloway's name at a hospital in Tampa has been quietly renamed. The conservation grants she funded continue to support legitimate scientific work. The scholarship recipients, mostly first-generation college students, have been informed that their funding is secure through alternative sources. Customs agent Daniel Reyes, the man whose initial anomaly report set the entire investigation in motion, has been awarded the Department of Homeland Security's Secretary's Award for Valor. He has declined media interviews. His supervisor, the man who attempted to bury Reyes's original report, has been arrested. Special Agent Mira Costas was promoted last month. She continues to lead the ongoing investigation into the remaining named defendants. You should understand something about how this happened. It was not a failure of intelligence. The intelligence was there. A single customs agent, looking at a single discrepancy on a single manifest, saw what dozens of others had been paid to ignore. It was not a failure of law enforcement. When properly resourced and properly directed, federal investigators moved with extraordinary precision against an extraordinarily sophisticated adversary. It was a failure of attention. For 15 years, a woman whose wealth had no verifiable origin sat in plain sight at the highest levels of American civic life. No one asked where the money came from. No one looked closely at the Foundation's books. No one questioned the discrepancy between her stated inheritance and her actual operational footprint. The lesson of the Holloway case is not that the system worked. The lesson is that the system worked exactly once, late, and only because one customs agent in Mobile refused to let an anomaly go. How many Lorna Holloways are still out there? That is not a rhetorical question. It is the operating premise of the ongoing federal effort. The Holloway case has been described in internal Department of Justice memoranda as a proof of concept. Proof that this scale of criminal enterprise can exist, can sustain itself, can integrate itself into the legitimate institutions of American life, and can do so for years before discovery. If it happened once, it has happened more than once. The bunker beneath the island has been sealed. The currency is in federal custody. The narcotics have been incinerated under court supervision. But the network that built that bunker did not consist of one woman. It consisted of hundreds of cooperating professionals in customs houses and port authorities and law firms and banks and government offices, each performing one small function in exchange for one small payment, each individually unremarkable, collectively responsible for a 15-year criminal enterprise of historic scale. Some of them are now in custody. Most of them are not. Watch the prosecutions that follow. Watch the names that emerge from the sealed portions of the indictment. Watch the institutions that quietly distance themselves from their former benefactor, and ask yourself, the next time you read about a philanthropist whose generosity seems disproportionate to her visible means, where exactly did that money come from? Because somewhere tonight, on another island, in another bunker, beneath another perfectly ordinary house, the next Lorna Holloway is counting her cash. The only question is who notices first.